Welcome. You're listening because you want, well, insight without the fluff, knowledge that connects.
And today we're definitely diving deep. We're tackling a really dramatic story.
Absolutely. The showdown between the prophet Elijah and King Ahab, it's from 1 Kings 18 in the Hebrew Bible.
And the backdrop is intense. We're talking about a crippling famine in Samaria.
Mm-hmm.
It really sets the stage for this collision between worshipers of the Lord and the followers of Baal. Baal being the Canaanite storm and fertility god.
It's got everything, really. Politics, religion, power struggles. And what strikes me is how surprisingly relevant it feels, even today.
It really does. We're going to unpack that contest on Mount Carmel, the dynamics, the faith test, and definitely those echoes in our own time.
Okay, so let's set the scene. Elijah reappears after, a long absence during this drought?
Yes, exactly. And Ahab greets him, not exactly warmly. His first words are basically an accusation. Is it you, you troubler of Israel?
Wow, straight to blaming the prophet for the kingdom's problems.
Right. It immediately shows you the conflict.
Hmm.
Who or what is really causing the suffering?
And Elijah's comeback is, fearless. He flips it right back.
He does. He says something like, I haven't troubled Israel. You have, and your father's house.
Because you've abandoned the commandments?
Precisely. Abandon the commandments of the Lord and follow the Baals. No pulling punches there. He directly links the leadership's religious choices to the national crisis.
Okay, so accusation met with counter-accusation. Then Elijah does something incredibly bold.
He really does. He issues this challenge, tells Ahab to gather everyone, all of Israel, plus the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah.
All of them, up on Mount Carmel.
All of them. And the text adds this little detail that these prophets eat at Jezebel's table.
Ah, so they're state-sponsored prophets, basically, royal patronage.
Exactly. This isn't some small sect. It's the religious establishment backed by the queen.
Which makes Elijah's challenge even more audacious.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're all gathered on Mount Carmel. What's the pivotal moment?
It's Elijah addressing the crowd. He puts this incredibly sharp question to them. How long will you go limping between two different opinions?
Limping? That's a great image.
Isn't it? He says, the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, then follow him. He's forcing the issue.
And the response?
Silence. Utter silence. The text says, the people did not answer him a word.
That silence speaks volumes, doesn't it? Fear, indecision, just stuck.
It could be any of those, really.
Yeah.
It highlights just how caught the ordinary people were in this high-stakes conflict. They're caught between these powerful forces.
So even their silence is a kind of decision, or maybe indecision. Then Elijah proposes the test.
Yes, the famous test. 2 bulls, prepared as sacrifices, but crucially, no fire is to be lit by human hands.
Okay.
The God who answers the call with fire, Elijah declares, that is the true God.
And the people, they go for it.
They do. They respond, it is well spoken.
Yeah.
They seem to recognize the apparent fairness of this trial by fire.
All right, so the stage is set. The prophets of Baal go first.
They do. And it's quite a scene. From morning right through till noon, they're crying out, "Oh, Baal, answer us!" Nothing. The text really emphasizes this. There was no voice, and no one answered. 0 response.
So what do? Just keep shouting?
They get more frantic. The text says they were limping around the altar they had made, crying louder. And then they start cutting themselves with swords and lances until blood flowed. A kind of desperate ritualistic frenzy.
Wow. Intense. A real picture of unanswered desperation.
Absolutely. And then right around noon, Elijah steps in with some pretty sharp sarcasm.
Oh, this is the mocking part.
Yes. He tells them to shout louder. Maybe Baal is, deep in thought, or perhaps he stepped away for a moment.
Stepped away? You mean like relieving himself? The text implies that.
It certainly suggests it. Or maybe he's on a journey, or just asleep and needs waking up. It's biting commentary.
It really highlights the perceived absurdity of their unanswered pleas. It's almost dark humor in this super tense moment.
It definitely contrasts sharply with what happens next. Elijah takes charge. He tells the people, come near to me.
Gathering them close.
Yes. And then he starts repairing the Lord's altar, which had been torn down. Symbolic act, right? Rebuilding what was broken.
And he uses 12 stones, doesn't he?
He does. 1 for each tribe of Israel. It's a powerful visual reminder of their shared history, their covenant, their intended unity.
Reconnecting them to their roots. Okay. Altar repaired. What else?
He then digs this big trench all around the altar. Big enough, the text notes, to hold a large quantity of seed.
A trench. Okay. Why?
Well, what he does next explains it. He orders water to be brought, 4 large jars, and he has them pour it all over the offering and the wood on the altar.
Soaking the sacrifice, that seems counterproductive if you want fire.
Exactly. And he doesn't just do it once, he has them do it a second time, and a third time,
3 times.
3 times, until the water fills the altar and even fills the trench he dug around it. It's completely saturated.
Okay, he's making it absolutely impossible for this to light by any normal means, no tricks.
That's precisely the point. He's removing any doubt, any possibility of, sleight of hand, setting the stage for something undeniably supernatural.
Right. So everything's drenched. Impossible odds. Then comes Elijah's prayer.
Yes, at the time of the evening sacrifice. And his prayer is very direct, very focused. He calls on the Lord, identifying him as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel again, linking back to their heritage.
And what does he ask for?
He asks the Lord to show that he is God in Israel, that Elijah is his servant acting on his word, and crucially, that this people may know that you, O Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. It's about God's glory in the people's hearts.
Not about Elijah himself.
No, explicitly not. And the response?
Spontaneous, right.
Instantaneous and dramatic. Then the fire of the Lord fell. And it didn't just light the wood, it consumed everything.
Everything.
The burnt offering, the wood, the stones of the altar, the very dust, and it even licked up the water that was in the trench. Complete, overwhelming consumption by fire.
Wow. Just gone. Licked up the water. That's an image.
It leaves no room for ambiguity.
And the people's reaction after seeing that?
Immediate and unified, they fall on their faces, and they cry out together, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God."
A complete turnaround from silence to declaration.
A total reversal.
Yeah.
It's this moment of mass conviction. And following that, Elijah gives a harsh command.
This is the part about the prophets of Baal.
Yes, he orders the people to seize them. Let not one of them escape. And they're taken down to the brook Kishon and slaughtered there.
A very stark ending to the confrontation.
It is. It signifies a complete rejection of Baal worship and, in the narrative's view, a necessary purging to reestablish the proper order. A decisive, if brutal, conclusion on Carmel.
Okay, so the spiritual battle seems won, but the land is still suffering from drought.
Right, and that's the immediate next step. Elijah goes to Ahab and tells him essentially, go celebrate, have a meal, because rain is coming. I hear the sound of the rushing of rain.
He hears it already, even though there's no sign yet.
Apparently so. It's a statement of faith based on the spiritual victory. The drought, seen as a consequence of idolatry, will end now that the Lord has been acknowledged.
So while Ahab goes off to eat and drink, what does Elijah do?
Elijah goes back up Carmel.
Yeah.
And his posture is one of intense prayer, humility. He bows down to the ground, puts his face between his knees. Even after the fire, he's reliant on God.
He doesn't just assume the rain will automatically appear.
No. He sends his servant up to look toward the sea. The servant goes, comes back. There is nothing.
Nothing.
Elijah tells him, go again. 7 times.
7 times. That shows incredible persistence after everything he just witnessed.
It really does. He's holding on to the promise, looking for the evidence.
Yeah.
And finally, the 7th time, the servant comes back with news.
What does he see?
Behold, a little cloud like a man's hand is rising from the sea. Just a tiny sign.
Like a man's hand. So small, but it's enough.
It's the signal. Elijah immediately tells the servant to hurry to Ahab, tell him to get his chariot ready and get going before the rain stops him.
He knows it's not just going to be a sprinkle.
Exactly. And sure enough, very quickly the sky grows black with clouds and wind. And then a heavy downpour begins. A great rain. The drought is broken.
Finally, relief for the land.
Yes. And then there's this final image of Elijah's strength, empowered by God. He tucks his garment into his belt and actually runs ahead of Ahab's chariot all the way to Jezreel.
Runs ahead of a chariot. That's quite something.
It really emphasizes the divine energy at work through him after this whole ordeal.
What an incredible story. So bringing this forward, how do we connect this ancient drama to our lives now? We don't really have prophets of Baal around or literal altar challenges.
No, not literal ones. But the core struggle, I think, is timeless. The question becomes, what are our modern Baals? What are the things that demand our allegiance, our time, our energy, potentially pulling us away from, deeper values or a connection to something more foundational?
Okay, so not stone idols, but maybe, what? The pursuit of fame, like online validation.
That could certainly be one.
Yeah.
The constant chase for likes, followers, external approval,
Yeah.
it can become an idol, a false measure of self-worth, demanding immense energy, or think about materialism.
Right. The idea that happiness comes solely through acquiring more stuff, more wealth, that can definitely consume people.
Absolutely. It becomes this relentless cycle. And maybe even technology itself, the way it can dominate our attention, fragment our focus, maybe even hinder real connection sometimes.
Yeah, that hits close to home. It's easy to get pulled into those things without even realizing how much they're shaping our priorities.
And that's where the parallel to the people on Mount Carmel comes in, isn't it? That sense of limping between two opinions. We often feel pulled in different directions, right? Competing demands, competing voices telling us what's important. Work, family, personal ambition, social pressures, digital noise.
We're constantly navigating these competing claims on our loyalty, our attention.
Exactly. So the question then becomes, what acts as the fire from heaven in our lives? What are those moments of clarity?
So maybe not literal divine fire, but moments of truth or conviction.
Perhaps those experiences or realizations that just cut through everything else. Something happens where we understand something and suddenly our perspective shifts. We know what's truly important. It could be a crisis, a moment of deep reflection, a relationship, an insight that just lands with undeniable force.
And it takes courage to act on that clarity, right? Like Elijah did, to stand by your convictions, even when it's unpopular or difficult.
Definitely. It's often easier to just go along, to keep limping between opinions. Making a decisive commitment, choosing what truly matters and sticking to it, that requires real courage, whether the opposition is external or just our own internal inertia or fear.
So Elijah's story isn't just about ancient religion. It's fundamentally about discerning what truly deserves our ultimate commitment.
I think that's the heart of it. It challenges us, listening now to take an honest look. Where do our deepest loyalties really lie? Not just what we say, but where do we actually invest our time, our energy, our devotion? In this noisy world, what guides our choices?
Yeah. So as we wrap up this deep dive, the big takeaway seems to be this enduring human tension, this pull between different allegiances, different gods, if you will.
And the power that comes from clarity, from making a conscious, decisive choice about what foundation you're building your life on.
Which leads us to that final thought for you to ponder. What are the balls in your own world? The things subtly or maybe not so subtly competing for your core allegiance.
And perhaps more importantly, what would your Mount Carmel moment look like? That point of clarity, that decisive moment where you cut through the confusion and commit to what truly holds ultimate value for you.
Something definitely worth reflecting on, the ongoing need for discernment and commitment in our own lives.